All right, for today's video review, we're going to be finishing off our 4-pack here from Buzzworthy Bumblebee, the Creatures Collide 4-pack, and be taking a look at Scorponok. Now, this version of Scorponok, because obviously we've gotten Scorponok before, this is just another repaint of the Kingdom Scorponok, but this one specifically is referencing the original Beast Wars Scorponok color scheme from the toy line rather than the cartoon, because in the actual animation, his color scheme looked very, different from the actual toy color scheme, because the original Scorponok toy, I don't think the color scheme is very good. It was cast mostly in this just unpainted black plastic, which obviously they made that change for the show, so he was mostly gray, and I think that looks much better. But it is kind of neat to get a new figure that is homaging that original color scheme from the toy line. And we've gotten a few of these too. In the Worlds Collide 4-pack, we got the Toy Colors Black Arachnia. We just recently, when I saw this pack in the stores, I also saw the Toy Colors Pterosaur and the Toy Colors Dinobot. I decided not to pick those up just because I haven't really been going full in on the Toy Colors Beast Wars figures that they've been doing, but it is neat that those things exist regardless. I probably wouldn't have picked this figure up if it wasn't in a 4-pack with other figures that I wanted, because it's fine, but it is kind of, it's referencing a color scheme that I just kind of don't think is very good to begin with. So it's a neat homage, but I don't know. I generally prefer the regular color scheme for Scorponok. But yeah, here he is in his Scorpion mode, and it looks pretty nice regardless. In terms of articulation, the legs here, the back legs are on a ball joint at the base here. The middle two legs are on this kind of conjoined ball joint, so they move in tandem together. And then the front legs here are on a ball joint at one of the knees. And just like with the other versions of this mold, it's not actually balancing on the legs. It's pretty much just sitting on the ground, and then you're just kind of bringing down the legs to meet the ground to make it look like he's standing on his legs, which is fine. It would be kind of hard to do that with a lot of little ball joints and make it actually stable. For the claws here, they'll just become the robot mode arms, so they've got a pretty decent number of joints. It's got a swivel right here, can hinge in and out at this spot here. It's got a swivel here, a hinge for, I guess you'd still call it the elbow, a swivel at the wrist. The claws open and close. For the tail here, it can hinge up and down here, and then it's got a little ball joint at the stinger. You can kind of bring it forward, but you have to do a bit of finagling where you bring the tail forward, and then you have to sort of bring the leg that was inside the tail up to meet it, which is not, super elegant, but if you're just looking to get some poses for photography, it is possible. He does, of course, come with the same accessories that the other versions of this figure have come with. He comes with his little missiles here. And what's kind of neat, even though this is not really a toy homage as much as a cartoon homage, he does have little maximal symbols on his missiles here, whereas the character's always been a Predacon, but there were a few shots in the original cartoon where Scorponok, there was a close up on Scorponok's missiles, and it showed that he's got little maximal symbols on them, which truthfully I think was probably an animation error would be my guess, because I don't know if they're people have sort of retconned it and kind of been oh yeah, he's got maximal symbols on his missiles because he shoots them at maximals, so it's targeting maximals, and it's kind of a cool sort of thing to put your enemy faction on your missiles. That could be. I mean, it's a good explanation for it. Truthfully, I think it was an animation error, but that's okay. It is kind of neat to get that reference regardless. And then obviously he comes with this little Cyber Bee as well, which looks pretty good. They picked out a few yellow spots there, so that sticks out quite nicely. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the Scorpion mode. It doesn't have a ton of features or anything like that, obviously. I mean, it's just, a standard, redesign of a Beast Wars figure. They don't tend to put all the gimmicks from the original toy line. But just like the other figures in this set, aside from Golbug, he does come with an extra head sculpt. He comes with two different head sculpts. The one that's on him right now is just the original Kingdom Scorponok head sculpt. And then this is the sort of battle mutant mask head sculpt that came with Legacy Sandstorm. So we've seen both of these head sculpts before, but it is neat that he comes with both of those, especially because this one is going for a toy homage, which means it's it should be able to have the two different head sculpts, because that's how the toys work. They had the mutant head and they had the robot head, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, no, he looks pretty nice in his toy colors. Like I said, yeah, I'm not really looking to pick up all of the toy colors ones. The Dinobot looked really nice because it's got a new head sculpt, and the Pterosaur, I'm like, it's not different enough. So maybe if I had a super surplus of money, then I'd go full in on these guys, because I do think it's a cool idea to have these like toy referential color schemes, but I probably wouldn't have even picked up this guy if he were in the pack. But either way, that's okay. In terms of comparisons, for the standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe, just for the standard size deluxe comparison. Here he is with the original Kingdom Scorponok, just so you can see some of the differences here. And what's kind of nice about this guy is that, though it's a more toy accurate color scheme, there are actually sections of him that are more animation accurate as well, because with the original Kingdom Scorponok, they elected to go with this kind of like, it's a nice looking color, but this sort of like purple color for the claws and a lot of the accented parts, whereas in the show, it really was more of the toy accurate color, which was just this kind of like, purple-esque gray rather than this more like solid purple. So if you really wanted to, there could be some ways to swap out some parts from this guy to make this guy look even more show accurate. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in robot mode, but it is kind of neat that, this is actually a much more apt color choice than the purple that they chose for the original Kingdom Scorponok. But yeah, that's what they look like together. Here he is from the Worlds Collide 4-pack is Black Arachnia, the other toy colored one that I have from the Beast Wars reference figures. I don't have an original Beast Wars Scorponok to like show off how he looks with the original color scheme, but here he is with the reissue of Kingdom Scorponok, or of Beast Wars Scorponok, which is kind of funny because then it's like, oh yeah, we have the original toy in cartoon colors, and then we have the new updated toy, the new updated toy in original toy colors. So it's sort of like they swapped their color schemes, which is a kind of neat idea. But yeah, they look kind of neat together. I think that I'm probably going to put this guy on the shelf with my reissue of Scorponok, just because I think they look pretty good together. And as you can see, the color match on the claws is not like totally perfect. This is much more of like a purpley gray rather than the bluish gray, but it's mostly the same. And the reason I'm talking, this is pretty much the same color that was on the original Scorponok toy as well. But yeah, I think they look pretty good together. But yeah, in terms of transformation, obviously it's the exact same as every other version of this mold. First thing you want to do is untab the leg here from the tail and bring that down, and then the other leg is kind of folded up inside the body here. So you just bring those down like that, rotate them each forward, and then fold down the feet at the heels here. And then untab this whole section and kind of just bring it down like this for now. You want to take the scorpion head here and fold it back on this panel, and then untab that and then fold it into the body and then fold that back up. Then we can kind of start folding down the arms here a little bit, unhook the head from inside the body here, and then once you do that, you can take this section and kind of double hinge it up. It'll lock into place, and then you can close up the chest panels here. And then for the scorpion legs, you just want to bring these sections into the body like that. Take the two middle legs, fold them up like that, and just kind of interlock them. And then take the two upper legs and interlock those in the same pattern, just like that. And then you want to take the tail here, and it'll actually fold up at this joint right here to kind of compress over top of the scorpion legs. And then bring this up like that. So can be kind of tricky to do sometimes, but just basically that's how you want it. And then you can bring these legs in, and they kind of just sit along the back side here, kind of parallel to the tail. And then you just adjust the arms here so they're all facing the right direction. And there you have Buzzworthy Bumblebee Scorponok in his robot mode. And yeah, no, it looks pretty good. It's definitely much more of a reference to the original toy colors than the cartoon model, looking quite inaccurate to how Scorponok looked in the cartoon. But that's the point of this figure. It's got the same head sculpt as Kingdom Scorponok, so you can see how that looks. And unfortunately, it is kind of missing a lot of paint apps, I feel like. Like, Yeah, to be more accurate, I guess most of the black should be unpainted. To make it stand out a little bit better than the original figure, they have kind of done this thing where it's really subtle, but there's like a slight amount of like variation of like silver tones going down the body, which definitely just like makes it look better than just straight up unpainted plastic, but it is a very subtle effect. The main paint apps that I really miss is I wish that he still had like, you know, the picked out detail on the legs here and some of the picked out detail on the face, because you know, then that might make me want to swap out all of these, you know, parts with the original Kingdom Scorponok so that it had a, you know, a much more kind of show accurate color scheme for that one. But you know, some of the painted detail is missing that was present on that Kingdom Scorponok, unfortunately. But either way, in terms of articulation, he's just like, you know, the other versions of this mold. The head is on a ball joint. It can swivel and then kind of look up and down a little bit. The shoulders here, they have that transformation joint where they can fold up like that, but they can also just fold out to the side on their own. So you can have a little bit of variation there if you want him to have like his shoulders flared up, or if you just want him to have his arms out to the side, which is nice. Additionally, there is a swivel there at the shoulder as well. There's a bicep swivel, bend at the elbow, about 90 degrees, a wrist swivel, and then the claws can obviously still open and close. For the waist here, there is a waist joint. It's pretty limited by just all the stuff it's connected to, so you only really get from like there to there, but you know, it's a slight amount of movement. The hips can go forward, back only about that far, out to the side. He's got a thigh swivel, pretty deep knee bend, and then the feet, they can both tilt to the side, and then this one in particular can tilt forward, whereas when you tilt this one forward, just because of the asymmetrical transformation, the heel stays on the ground there, so he can't have like a flat-footed forward ankle tilt, but you know, that still works well enough for particular poses. In terms of size comparisons, here he is again, just for the standard one with Kingdom Sideswipe. So you can see he's a pretty short deluxe there at the head. There's ways that you can change that a little bit, but either way, no matter which way you shake it, he is kind of a small figure, but that's what they look like together. Here he is again with the Worlds Collide Black Arachnia for another Beast Wars toy color figure there. Here he is again with Kingdom Scorponok, just so you can see, you know, the difference there. And what I'm talking about really is like with some of the missing painted detail, like, you know, you could, if you want, like, you know, if you really wanted to just switch out the pieces that had this color plastic on it, then you would have to do a fair amount of like pin punching and stuff like that, if that's something you're comfortable with. I think maybe the claws, yeah, okay, you could get the claws off of their base without doing any of that. But the shoulder pieces, there's definitely a pin running through there. If you wanted to do just the lower legs down, then you'd have to punch that pin. So, you know, there'd be well, actually, is that even a pin? I don't even know if these are pins. I think that they're just like stretched over the plastic there. I'm not going to try to mess with it, but yeah, I'm not really sure. I'd always assumed that there were pins there, but now I'm not so sure looking at it because it's got, you know, that looks like plastic to me, which I think is just a molded part of the black plastic here. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it seems like it would be a little bit risky to do either way. Now that's just going to keep coming off, huh? But if you wanted to do a slightly easier version of that and just like replace the arms and the legs in their entirety, or at least most of it, the shoulders here are on mushroom pegs, and then halfway down the leg it's on a mushroom peg, so you could switch it off there. So the upper part of his leg would be kind of two different colors, but you could do that. You wouldn't really be replacing the waist piece, and then obviously the heads are just on ball joints, so you could do that. I tried it out. I'm not gonna do it again just because like I don't want to put too much stress on the plastic, but it didn't look that great because personally I'm like, well, this is kind of the wrong color, but it also has all these extra little paint apps that really make it pop. Like if this figure had like, you know, the gold going up the legs and then these little, you know, gold parts in the middle, and then like the gold bits on the mandible, and then like the two-tone nature of the face with the darker purple there in the middle, then maybe. But as it is, I think that he looks a little bit kind of like, you know, not adequately painted to match the rest of this guy's aesthetic. So, I mean, you can do it, and then you could do it in like paint those parts yourself, and you'd have a better, undertone of plastic to work with. But I don't know. For me, I think it ended up just being more trouble than it's worth. But yeah, that's what they look like together. And then here he is with Legacy Sandstorm as well. And then this is another thing I want to talk about, is that this is one little fix you can do with the figure. I mean, at least I think it's a fix, is if you don't like how short and stumpy the proportions of this mold is, without getting any upgrade parts or anything like that, because there are some that help this out a little bit, you can just sort of untab the lower section here and then close this back up, and then just bring that up and use this as a bit of an ab crunch, so that you can kind of angle the head forward and have him be, a little bit more hunched over, like the original character model was. And I think that helps the look of the proportions of this figure a lot, just, from this to that. But it's just an option. I guess for the rest of the review, I'll put him back in the stock configuration. But that is one thing that you can do to kind of make him look a little bit better, in my opinion. But yeah, no, he also comes with the extra head sculpt here, which, if we want to show him off with the reissue of Scorponok here, we can see, like, this is the more kind of, robot mode head inspired design. But the robot head design for this figure is really way more based on how it looked on the show, rather than how it looked, on the toy. Like, they kind of, like, in some superficial ways look the same, but not really. But if you want a much more toy accurate head sculpt to go with this figure, which is supposed to be, way more toy accurate, it does have the mutant mask that came with Sandstorm as well. And I think that this is a much better, like, looking sculpt to kind of match up to the original figure, because they really got that version of the head sculpt very spot on. So this is the only one of the figures that came with the alt heads in this set that I think I'm actually going to use the alt head for. For him, you just pull it off the ball joint here. Thankfully, his head feels a little bit looser on the ball joint than the original figure, because, like, truthfully, with these, like, I would pick a head sculpt and stick to that, because the plastic that Transformers is made out of isn't, like, really made for, like, a lot of, like, constant popping on and off of ball joints. If you do it every once in a while, I think it's okay, but, like, I would worry about some of these pieces, like, snapping if you were trying to do this regularly. But just once to kind of get the new head sculpt on there, I think is fine. But we'll just do that right now, since this is the head sculpt I want on there, and it feels just a little tight and scary. I guess you could try putting it on from the top, but it doesn't. There we go. All right, that's not coming off now. But yeah, I like that look better personally. I also think that this head sculpt is just generally painted a little bit better than the robot head sculpt. I think the beast mask looks a lot better on him. So yeah, that's what he looks like with the reissue of the toy. And then last but not least, here he is with the other members of the Creatures Collide pack, just so you can see how the set looks as a whole. And yeah, I think it's a good little pack. I love the bug pun by making this pack 4 bugs, and one of them is a Volkswagen bug. But yeah, in terms of, like, do you think you should get this set or not? Well, one thing I will say is that, like, similar to the Worlds Collide 4-pack from last year, this set actually costs less than the cumulative sum of its parts, which, when you're getting a value pack of figures, you'd think that would make sense, but they tend to usually just make the packs include, they're priced as the cumulative sum of their parts, so that you're basically forced to, buy figures that you might not have otherwise bought. Like this guy, I probably wouldn't have bought him. And, I could sit here and complain about, like, oh, now, I had to pick up this figure that I didn't want and pay for an extra deluxe just because I wanted these 3 figures. But the set costs $75, which is the price of 3 deluxes nowadays. So really, he's just kind of a freebie. I guess if there's, like, multiple figures in this set that you really don't want, then yeah, it's still kind of going in that direction. But you're getting a good bang for your buck here. I mean, we could always have the discussion of, like, whether or not deluxes nowadays should cost $25, because, like, obviously they shouldn't. But you know, this set easily could have cost $100 because it's 4 deluxes, 25 times 4, whereas it costs 75, which is like, you're basically getting, you know, buy 3, get 1 free, which is, I think, a pretty good deal. And it did similarly did that with the Worlds Collide 4-pack, whereas, I mean, theirs was a little bit different because basically it cost more or less the price of, it costs a little bit less than 4 deluxes, but not by as much, but it also, one of the figures was a Voyager in it, so basically it's the same effect as you're getting 1 deluxe for free in the pack. But yeah, no, I mean, I've been a big fan of these Buzzworthy Bumblebee 4-packs of the Generations figures. I think that both of them so far have been really good, and I was looking actually like when the last one came out, and it was about a year ago to now, so maybe in a year's time now we'll have another 4-pack that is in a similar idea. I think that these sell pretty well, and what's nice about the Buzzworthy Bumblebee packs is, like, if you live in a country that has targets, they're not hard to find. Like, they'll still be shelf warming on the shelves for ages because they just, like, buy a bunch of them for the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line. So I'm a pretty big fan of this set overall, and I think that despite the fact that he's probably my least favorite figure in the set because it's just the one that I probably wouldn't have bought, I still think it's a good figure overall. And if you're into the toy color referential Beast Wars figures, then this guy, you know, he does a pretty good job. But yeah, oh, you know what I should show off? I should show him off with the, I always forget to do this when I'm looking at new versions of the Scorponok mold, but I want to show off the Cyber Beast guy. So you can see some of the differences there. He's got a little bit more paint actually than the Kingdom Cyber Bee, so you could switch this one out if you wanted a you know, a Cyber Bee in this guy that had a bit more paint, but figured I would show that off there. But yeah, you know, it's a good figure overall, and it's a good set overall, and I am definitely happy that I was able to find it. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about this guy. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Buzzworthy Bumblebee Creatures Collide Scorponok.